Good morning, everyone. The sun is shining today. It makes me very happy. I don't know about you guys, but it makes me happy. So, thoughts from the car today. This morning on the way to work, I was thinking about empathy and was thinking about how important empathy really is and how some people are better at it than others. And I think there's lots of reasons for that. So first of all, what is empathy, right? Because we talk about empathy a lot when we're talking about all these different things like compassion and kindness and generosity and all those different things. So what does empathy look like? What is it? Empathy, by definition, is the ability to put yourself in someone else's place. Like to be able to say, oh, I understand why that person did, thought, felt, said that certain thing. So by having empathy, we are then able to be kind, we are able to give compassion. We are able to be a nice human, give grace in areas that otherwise we might not. So how do we do that? Like, how do we physically give empathy to someone? Like, what does that even look like? And why is it important? So first, let's go over why it's important. I think it's super important to have empathy because it is the catalyst of kindness and compassion and giving grace and all of that. All these other concepts and constructs that we've been talking about. But I think the big thing with empathy is it's needed. Everybody needs it. Like, everybody needs someone to be empathetic towards whatever it is they're going through that day or that month or that year or that lifetime. And like I said, some people are better at it than others. Now, this is purely just Brianna's observation. It's not like a study. There might be a study on it. I don't know. But this is Brianna's observation. It's my observation that the people who tend to be the most empathetic tend to be the people who did not receive empathy when they were growing up. Meaning there were very high expectations put on them. And when they messed up, because we all messed up, especially as kids, they were not given empathy. They're not given grace. They were not given compassion. They were given an expectation. And if they didn't meet that expectation, then, there was an issue. So, and that's just my observation. And I also think that as we become adults, when there are opportunities to receive empathy, if we don't receive it, we tend to have more empathy towards others. Sometimes it can go the opposite way too. But I think that's a topic for another day. So it's important. It's important. It's a big part of all the other wonderful, good human things that we need. So what does it look like? Like, what does empathy look like? Is it just, oh, I'm so sorry, saying I'm sorry all the time? No. In fact, I think saying I'm sorry all the time is not necessarily a good thing. And that's as a recovering people pleaser, because that's what I say all the time. I'm late. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm offend someone. Oh, I'm sorry, which, you should apologize. But having it as your default thing that you say all the time and feeling sorry all the time is not necessarily healthy. So, and that's not necessarily empathy. So I think empathy it looks like validation, really. It's validating a feeling that someone has, even if you don't agree with it. It's still validating how they feel about a situation and saying, wow, I'm sorry. See, it's default for me, even when we're talking. It's validating what they have to say, even if you don't agree with it. So it's saying something like, I understand that as you're feeling. I understand that is how you feel, or can you tell me more about that? So I think there are things we can say. So, and that's what I was kind of thinking about this morning, is like, what is it we can say instead of sorry? And I think one of the best things we can say is, I understand. You know, even if you don't, I don't want to say that we're going to like lie, but I think just understanding what you understand and like explaining that, like, hey, I understand where you're coming from, or I think I understand where you're coming from. And if you don't understand where they're coming from, then follow that up with, can you tell me more of how you're feeling if you don't understand? Another thing we can say would be like, wow, that really sounds difficult. I was in a situation recently where just going through a difficult circumstance, and my friend, when I was telling her about it, that was what she said to me, even though she didn't really agree with how I was handling the situation, because she's much wiser than I am sometimes. She said, wow, I really understand. That sounds really difficult. And so she then listened and empathized with me and validated the feelings that I was having, and didn't let me go crazy with accusation or, you know, unhelpful thought processes. But she just was like, wow, I understand that really sounds difficult. Can you tell me more about that feeling that you're having, or tell me more about why you're feeling that way? And that was super validating, and that was empathy. That was a perfect example of empathy. Another thing that we can say instead of I'm sorry, that shows empathy, is I'm here for you. You know, like, especially when someone's going through something difficult, just knowing that someone's there, you know, just and saying that rather than I'm so sorry. You know, it's so easy for us to just be like, oh, I'm sorry, and then move on with our lives. But to really truly have empathy for someone and then say, I'm here if you need me. How can I help? You know, what can I do to help you through this situation or this thought process to make it better, easier, whatever we want to say. And then I think something that we forget oftentimes, some of the best empathy is saying nothing at all and just being there. Especially when we're talking about things like grief, you know? Sometimes we say the wrong thing because we want to be empathetic. We want to show our love and our care for someone. But I think just showing up, saying nothing at all and just sitting there with them, whatever they're doing, that shows empathy. That shows care. That shows compassion. And I think, like I said, there are people who are better at it than others. I shared one of my reasons why. And why is it so important? We kind of shared that. And I was thinking about this example. Literally happened to me on my way to work today. Is getting cut off in traffic. Like, if we had more empathy, like my thought process, I find myself as I'm healing, even how I'm sitting in traffic changes, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, maybe they're late to work, or gosh, maybe an emergency happened. You know, instead of just jumping and being like, oh, that, you know, whatever, giving the bird or that a-hole or whatever you want to say, you know, like I try not to, because I usually have children in the car with me. But, you know, trying to be a better person, I find myself as I heal, my empathy, even for drivers, has increased in many ways. So empathy is a tool that we can use on the large scale, but even in our daily lives. So it's just validating. It's validating that, gosh, maybe somebody's going through something. Now, can we have too much empathy? I think that's a really important point. I do think we can. If empathy makes us allow boundaries to be crossed that we have put in place for our own health and safety, mental health, emotional health, then yes, then we can have too much empathy. But I think that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about this morning. Thoughts from the car. What do you guys think about empathy? Is empathy something that can be learned? Or is it just something we innately feel? What do you guys think? And where do you need more empathy in your life?